Well, here we are, everybody, returning back to VIXX. Of course, we were doing them for the whole week. And the question is, today we're going to be doing the Greek mythology part. And the question is, are we going to be treated to a delight, or are we going to end in a Greek tragedy? I apologize for that joke. But anyway, I'm actually super excited. We had a very good first day, and I suspect that this will be just as good. At least you always hope. Let's check it out, shall we?
Yeah, it's the late girl. All mine, all mine. All mine, all mine. All mine, all mine. Maybe I'm jealous.
뭘 봐, 이건 봐. 진정하라 하지 마. 무슨 소용이야 다. 이미 뻔히 저기 끝이 보여. 버튼더 한 장 더. I need more. One more.
Two shot.
흐트러지게 내버려둬. 날 봐. 저기 기운 눈 까맣게 사라져가고 시계를 돌리고 되돌려봐도
와.
세상을 다 뒤집어 Come on girl Dynamite 오늘 만나 조금 묵하게 Dynamite 미쳐 느껴오잖아 Shake it down Dynamite 온 세상을 엎어서라도 제발 오늘 너야 떠나가지 마 수리수리 이뤄져라 all mine 수리수리 돌아서라 all mine 안 믿어 난 뭔가 잘못된 거야 넌 아무것도 몰라 그녀 내거 운명이었어 이건 너무 같은 꿈 누군가 장난친 거고 시계를 돌리고 되돌려봐도
That's cool.
날 세상을 다 뒤집어 Come on girl Dynamite 오늘 만나 비뚤어지게 Dynamite 미쳐 던져 흔들어 Shake it down Dynamite 온 세상을 밟고서라도 어떻게든 넌 떠나가지 마
Yeah. 이건 다 꿈이야 맞아. That's right. 악몽 속의 항문 같아. 내가 반항해도 누가 날 자꾸 잠들게 마성의 자장가를 불러주나 봐. 세상 앞땅이 모여도 장난은 안 해. Oh no. 난 하루아침에 마녀가 된 백세. 분명 뭔가 잘못됐어.
내일이면 사겨야만 할 현실인 걸 씁쓸하지만 알고 있지만 너를 보낼 수가 없어 끝나지 않은 스토리 Dynamite 원래 주인공은 나인데 Dynamite 또 어쩌네 baby 어쩌다 Dynamite 모든 말을 모두 서라해 되고 싶은 날 가다가 Dynamite 오늘 만나 조금은 하게 Dynamite 미쳐 내려봐 Dynamite 온 세상을 엎어서라도 제발 오늘 넌 떠나가지 마 수리수리 빌어줘라 all mine 수리수리 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 돌아서라 all mine
Wow, okay. That is actually kind of wild. There is kind of a lot going on with the song. There's some very small details that they like to play with. I did look up which one this is based off of in the terms of Greek mythology, and this is absolutely Zealous, or Zelos, however you want to say it. Interesting thing about Zelos, actually, in a lot of ways, is, he has a brother named Nike. And Bia, obviously, and Kratos as his siblings. And, the interesting thing is that's where we get the word zeal from, is from Zelos. And a lot of times when you talk about Zelos in terms of mythology, nowadays, probably the most common thing is, like, intense emotion is, like, the big thing. And I find it interesting, here, because a lot of times, jealousy, competition is kind of what's associated with zealous. And I feel like that's one thing that was actually kind of like well spotted, was this like feeling of competition. And obviously with that, if with zealous, obviously that means that we're going to be getting a lot of jealousy in this as well. So I decided to pull up the lyrics, and immediately, right off the bat, it's too late. All mine, her mind. Maybe I'm jealous. What are you looking at? Let go of me. Don't tell me to relax. What's the use of it all? I can barely clearly see the end of from here. Bartender, one more glass. I need one more. Let me get messed up. Leave me alone. Oh, you're the moon setting over there. You'll just disappear into the blackness. The time is late. Even if I turn and turn back the clock, I got one night to turn over the whole world. Just for today, I'll lose my temper a little. So, very interesting. And I think that the interesting thing is with this too, is just kind of like the fact that they kind of decided to pair it up with the music that they did. I find it interesting because you get the typical sound from this particular genre. But it's definitely not just like pigeonholed to this, because I think a lot of senses in the making of the sound, you get that exact thing where it's like you get the usual, but off to the side here you get some different things that you generally don't hear inside of the genre, at least in the way that it's presented. This is very unique in this particular genre, at least I feel like you listen to this part and it's just very obviously different. Very, like, it harmonizes, but it's like kind of unsettling at the same time. It's really cool. And then like right there you hear the every offbeat, you get the vocals coming. Like a really just drop scale like that. Like it's just like da-da-da-da-da, and it just crashes. And all of this is just really just fine detail. And I think that it honestly, it paints it as like, oh, this is a fun, kind of funky song. And then you start paying attention to this kind of stuff and you're like, oh, there's a lot more going on here, because it's talking about things of jealousy and the intense emotions like we relate to zealous. And obviously, then you start getting like those little things, and then it's like, oh, but we're fine. We're going to be singing and dancing to the usual stuff. And it's really well done. I like the detail on that. Very cool. Very cool. Should we move on? I think we should. Next, we are moving on to fantasy. Very cool. I'm kind of digging this because there was a time and period where I was actually like super into Greek mythology. Luckily enough for me, back about a week or so ago, I was actually breaking out my old mythology books. So I am slightly a little bit more sharp than the last time I ran into mythology on my channel.
You are my fantasy. Just a fantasy.
충혈된 하늘 아래 비로소 눈 뜨는 모두 꿈의 길을 이루어지지 않아서 지친 나는 갈 곳을 잃었어 제발 어디든
This is awesome.
잃어버린 밤처럼 피어버린 사랑만 tragedy 너는 그리 울린다 just a fantasy 내게 쏟아지는 넌 나의 tragedy 내게 모든 전부 뺏겨버린 심장에 비틀어진 운명에 한순간 넌 연기처럼 온몸으로 퍼진 너를 들이마셔
걱정 따위도 많아도 돼 매일 지키고 칼날에 bang 나에도 너만 가지면 돼네 존재가 할만은 해그 경계를 나누는 기준이 되고 너의 천사를 약속한 날넌 가져야 해
fantasy 어지러운 차오르는 pain 모두 깨져버릴 빛으로 채워지는 삶의 tragedy 내 손을 걸어둘 테니 널 돌려줘 fantasy fantasy just my fantasy 너의 곳곳에 남겨져 지원할 수 없도록 나의 fantasy
Interesting.
It's all mine. It's my fantasy.
Okay. Interesting. I think the one thing that I have to say I really, really like about this is that they're not trying to pretend to be like, this is a song about Zelos. This is a song about Hades. But I think that there's like a lot of interesting themes that they're using from said story and from said beliefs. Obviously, like one of the things that we know is that he is in charge of the underworld. But I feel like the interesting thing is too to note is that he's one of the original Olympian brothers, right? It's what is it? He's one of the original Olympians. I'm totally blanking right off the top of my head as soon as I say that. Obviously, Kronos and Rhea are his brothers, or parents, I should say. And this is kind of one of those stories that to me, I find really interesting, mainly because this is one of those scenes where it's his title is more of a burden rather than like a glory, if that makes sense. Obviously, with Persephone being like dragged down and forced to marry him, and like the whole idea behind that is like there's the whole dormancy and all that stuff. So the interesting thing is about all this, though, I kind of feel like that this in of itself is more talking about the underworld rather than Hades itself. Like talking about, I know that it's over, my fantasy will swallow everything, it will change everything, which of course we know that that does happen. Pain comes up like thorns, if there's only one way that opens, please save me fantasy, get up off that dream, the addiction that fills me pierces my heart, it rides me and thickly follows, my love that grew from that sadness. Like it's more of the pressing feeling of the souls that are lost to the underworld and the burden that comes from being, you know, the title of ruler of underworld is kind of a little bit more interwoven into this. Even if it's late, I want to live in that place. Pain comes up like thorns. Like obviously the wanting that escape, my tragedy. If there's only one way that opens, please save me. You're my tragedy, my remaining everything. Of course, you know, again, this is not necessarily singing about and talking about the Greek mythology, but applying it to their lyrics. So obviously when you're, you know, you're my tragedy, my remaining everything, obviously jealousy comes in first with Zelos, and then this is kind of like the dark depressive feeling of like wanting it to work out, realizing it's not, and realizing that, you know what, this is just destroying me. And it's a great way to go about it. And personally for me, This between the two of them, I definitely prefer this song. But I also have to say I love the choreography in this. It's so cool. A lot of like quick, sharp movements, a lot of pulling to, pushing away, a lot of grasping and clutching, a lot of struggle is being portrayed. And, it's that feeling that the song is singing about. That in reality, I think that one thing I've noticed about VIXX is that they might have some of the best storytelling through choreography. And it's actually so cool when something is so competently done in a tandem way with like the lyrics and the music. Is like there's a lot of times where I feel like that there's just choreography for the sake of choreography, which is fine, but storytelling and being good at it is, I feel, so rare. Seeing like talking about all those things that he wants and wants to be for her, and it's like this is just a fantasy. Even if I get torn apart and cut by knives, I promise to be your angel. You need to have me. And it's like pain rises from here and there. My tragedy. So give yourself back to me. But in the end, it's only a fantasy. That is really cool. Yeah, definitely more my vibe. I really appreciate this song. This is really cool. Anyway, should we move on? Zeus and Poseidon was Hades' siblings. Anyway, this one is, I believe it's the closer. And yeah, this has been really cool. I've really been appreciating this. This is fun. Let's check it out.
Think about love. 반쯤 가린 표정 내홍만이 남고 은밀한 무드 넘어 비밀만이 넘쳐 baby 나른한 눈빛으로 say something 물론 알아채지 오직 나만 홀로
Oh, whoa, whoa, that's no, no, boy. No, no, no. 쉬서도 태도 마저도 내 맘에서 들어도 발동하는 승부
1분 1초가 아깝지 여기 누구라도 탐낼 너잖니 Getting closer 다 밀어내고 너를 독점해 너의 어디에도 감히 눈을 들지 않게 틈 하나 없도록 다가가 모두들 멍하니 바라보기 알아봐 널 내게 맡겨 난 네 감각을 열어 널 내게 맡겨 나의 눈빛만을 믿어 너 시간 속에 갇혀있는 스님 다 끝까지 가득 breathe on me 널 내게 맡겨 널 내게 맡겨 열린 입술 너만 너를 향한 통로 관능은 능숙하게 내 시선을 잡고 baby 나른한 목소리로 say something 뭔가 특별하지 내 귓가에 talk low
Top low 하나 둘 셋 하고 넷 하고 나서 거칠어지는 숨소리에 우리 사랑의 채도가 더 짙어지네
째깍째깍 리듬 속에 날이 서있어 멈칫하는 사이 잘 벌려 달아나니까 만나고 널 가질 승자 나를 알게 해 나를 설명하는 수식 따윈 필요 없게 잠시만 넌 눈을 감아봐 그 파란 내 몸에 어디쯤을 감아봐 널 내게 맡겨 난 내 감각을 열어 널 내게 맡겨
for love. Ay, I'm looking for you and looking for me. 이제 좀 느낌이 오지 난 다른 내가 다르다고 말을 하지 않아도 넌 이미 나를 다 느꼈잖아. 나를 따라와 너를 완전히 내게 다 맡겨도 돼. And it's over.
Interesting. So, from what I read, this is based on Kratos, and no, not from the God of War video games. The interesting thing is about, with Kratos is like he's the basically Thor in, Greek mythology, right? So, the personification of strength and power, sovereign rule, and interestingly enough, I actually think this is one of those things where what the music video portrays is an interesting way of doing it, because the first thing that I noticed was actually their outfits in this. So, like here, you can tell they're using the power, the strength of Kratos to be, and actually, in a lot of ways, even the sovereign rule, with a military-ass jacket, right? And I find the thing that's so interesting about this is that I think that this is one of those things where obviously showing the display and power with military might kind of comes in as a replacement for physical strength in a lot of ways. And I think the one thing that I find interesting, and this is just purely based on my own observations and ideas, so this isn't meant to be taken as some sort of like form of reading in too much other than something that I noticed, but like this is where I started to notice where this kind of connects with the whole story that we've been kind of talking about. And so we get jealousy, then we get the suffering and pain and anger and all this other stuff, and then comes in the control. And the thing that I find so interesting about using Kratos as control, obviously we're using like that military might look, but I think a lot of times what I notice in men specifically, that a lot of times I would say that when they start to lose control in like said relationships, a lot of times they do clamp down and try and hold on and kind of try and gain control to see if they can kind of try and mold it into being like, I can hold on, as long as I'm kind of rearing this extra power, I'm going to be able to lead this through the struggle of possible breakup. And a lot of times that tends to go overboard. That, again, that's just my own personal opinion. I mean, I've seen it too, like even in myself. Obviously, I'm not going like super crazy, but you try to control what you can control, and so things don't fall apart. And a lot of times it just makes it worse, is basically what I'm trying to say. And using this as an example right here, to me personally, I feel like to myself that that's what's happening. Like the inherent strength that is, there to try and hold on so that things don't fall apart, usually just make it fall apart faster. And I think the thing that's really interesting though is that after we get past this part right there, you can see he knew that that's what kind of happened. At least that's how I feel. You're sitting there looking at this like, oh man, what happened here, I probably shouldn't have done. And I'm not saying that this is like some sort of like or implying an abuse like storyline. But I think a lot of times just when you start to lose something, you try to hold on to it, even if it's like water, it slips through your hand. And that's kind of what I think of it when I think of like the sovereign rule and the power. It's just like you're trying to hold on to something that's basically falling apart regardless of what's going on. I hope I'm making myself clear. But a lot of this is actually really done, like I said, thoroughly through the choreography and the fashion that is being used.
맛을 줄게 난 오락치던 밤이 그치면 나와 함께 사라질 뿐이야 날 네가만 And it's over.
And it's over. I think the thing that I find so interesting is the story that's being portrayed. Because, like, at first it's the jealousy. I think a lot of times people are just naturally jealous. And then you go through, like, the despair. And then you realize you're losing it, but you're trying to hold on, but it's not working. So, really interesting way to use the Greek mythology to tie in, like, the loss of a relationship and losing someone you love and the feeling that it gives of just, like, loss of control, but, like, trying to remain strong and remain in control, the pain and the jealousy that comes with it all. It's all really just a very interesting way to do this. Very good. I can understand why now they are referred to as concept kings, because this is a little bit more complex. I feel like what I'm talking about here is kind of more on surface level, but yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. I actually really like that. I definitely think that my favorite between the three of these is probably fantasy. I just think that is kind of more my vibe anyway. But I feel like that this is one of those things that I'm glad somebody mentioned that this was like a trilogy, because I think had I done this out of order, it would have not made it as special as it is. This is a phenomenal way of storytelling. And this is why I think a lot of times people that say like stories can't be told through music feels like a lost and missed opportunity, because this to me is a beautiful way to do that. So anyway, very cool. Let me know what y'all think about this and we'll discuss this down in the comments below. Thank you and goodbye.